Based on Harry Truman's historical record, personal writings, and well-documented personality, it is highly probable that he would have a deeply critical, and characteristically blunt, view of Donald Trump. While both men share a reputation for being combative, plain-speaking outsiders who stunned the political establishment, Truman's core philosophy was the antithesis of Trump's brand of populism. Truman was an institutionalist who revered the office of the presidency, a student of history who built the post-war global order, NATO, the UN, and a leader who famously insisted on taking ultimate responsibility. Here is a breakdown of what Truman would likely say, based on his own words and actions. On demagoguery and populism. Truman had a specific and intense disdain for demagogues, leaders he felt manipulated the public emotion for personal gain. He famously fought against Senator Joe McCarthy, whom he viewed as a dangerous liar. The verdict: Truman would likely view Trump as a classic demagogue. Truman once defined McCarthyism as the corruption of truth, a phrase he would almost certainly apply to Trump's rhetoric. What he might say: Truman often warned that if you don't have a moral background, you end up with a government that doesn't believe in rights for anyone but the state. He would likely view Trump's rallies and strongman rhetoric not as strength, but as a threat to the Constitution he revered. On the buck stops here versus deflection. Truman's most famous maxim, the buck stops here, was not just a slogan, it was his governing philosophy. He believed the president must make the hardest decisions and accept full blame for the consequences, regardless of popularity. The verdict: Truman would likely be appalled by Trump's tendency to blame subordinates, the media, or political enemies when things go wrong. What he might say: a president who tries to pass the buck is no president at all. Truman believed that dodging responsibility was a character flaw that rendered a man unfit for command. On NATO and America First. Truman was the primary architect of the modern Western alliance. He pushed for the creation of NATO and the Marshall Plan because he believed that American isolationism had helped cause World War II. The verdict: Trump's skepticism of NATO and his America First isolationism would be anathema to Truman. Truman viewed alliances not as bad deals, where America was being ripped off, but as the shield against aggression necessary to prevent World War III. What he might say: he would likely argue that abandoning allies is a fast track to another global catastrophe. He viewed the cost of alliances as the price of peace, and would see transactional diplomacy as dangerous short-sightedness. 4. On knowledge and history. Truman was a voracious reader who spent his nights in the White House poring over biographies of past leaders. He believed deeply that the only thing new in the world is the history you do not know. The verdict: Truman would likely view Trump's lack of interest in history and governance details as a dangerous negligence. What he might say: he famously said, "Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers." He would likely consider a president who does not read or study history to be flying blind. On the fighter persona. This is the one area where they might share DNA. Truman was unpopular for much of his presidency and was known for his "give them hell, Harry" attitude. He attacked the press, wrote angry letters to critics, and was seen as uncouth by the elite. The nuance: while he might begrudgingly respect Trump's ability to fight the media and win an upset election, reminiscent of his own 1948 victory, Truman fought to preserve the New Deal and the existing order, whereas Trump fights to disrupt it. The distinction: Truman would likely say, "I told the truth, and they thought it was hell." He would probably argue that Trump tells lies to raise hell, a distinction Truman would find unforgivable. Summary: if Harry Truman were to assess Donald Trump today, he would likely offer a stinging rebuke, perhaps utilizing the colorful language he was known for in private. He would likely see Trump as a McCarthyite figure, a man who puts his own ego above the dignity of the office and the stability of the world.